Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hey You Guys YouTube channel and the Hey You Guys website. Welcome back for another video review. We are going to be talking about a brand new film that's coming out this week, I believe, when the time this video goes up. We're going to be reviewing Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. Yes, Will Ferrell is back with another subtitled film, as he loves to do. On this review, I'm joined by Linda Marric.
Hello.
And Stefan Pape.
Hello.
So this is the latest original film from Netflix. This was due to be released in May to coincide with Eurovision, but obviously Eurovision was very sadly cancelled for this year. So it's had a little bit of a delayed releases coming out the height of, well, beginning of the summer, what would be the summer season. So Stefan, this is Eurovision. I could talk on for ages about our love for Mr. Ferrell. When he's good, he's not been very good in recent years. But tell us a little bit about the Story of Fire Saga.
So Will Ferrell plays Lodge. And McAdams plays Sigrid, and they're kind of, well, there's dubious as to whether they're brothers, sisters, cousins, who knows, but they're a double act in Iceland, and they have aspirations to compete in the Eurovision Song Contest, but there's about 12 or 13 other acts who are probably a bit better than they are. However, there's a big explosion on a boat that kills every other contestant in Iceland, and they are put forward as Iceland's entry for the Eurovision Song Contest, hosted in Edinburgh, where they head over to represent their nation, and what ensues is just one of the stupidest, most sort of silliest, funnest films I've seen for some time. But it's just very, very true in Eurovision spirit, very kind of kitsch, this one.
Yes, it is. So we've all seen it this time, which is good. Linda, you have just, as we've recorded this, you have just come off of the Netflix and watched it. What were your thoughts on this one?
Okay, so I watched about 5 minutes of it, put it down, and this was a couple of days ago. And then I went on and did other things, and then decided. And I had a bit more time today to watch it. I was all prepared to absolutely hate it, but then it won me over. I loved it. I absolutely love this movie. It's camp, it's silly, it's absolutely preposterous. Makes zero sense. I loved it, almost everything about it. I'm a big lover of the Eurovision, so it really made up the Eurovision not being on this year. I don't know what else to say, to be honest. I mean, it is so ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous story, but I just really warmed to it. Suddenly, I'm literally just ready to sort of completely go for it and not like it at all. And then I think the moment it won me over is right sort of at the beginning, the first chapter. There is this, they go to the Eurovision, and there is this mega mix of all the past Eurovision winners and the contestants, who start singing sort of "Share," "Do you belong?" "Do you believe?" and other sort of ABBA songs, and I just fell in love with the film straight away after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a film that Will Ferrell has been working on for about 20 years, because his wife is from Sweden, so he's been quite ingrained in the Eurovision Song Contest since then, and he's fallen in love with it. So it's taken a while for him to get the film made, but to make sure that it captured the spirit of Eurovision, which is very silly and very campy and very kitschy, which the film is, but it should be that way, because that's the spirit of Eurovision. And I think it does such a good job at that. I think he, and particularly Rachel McAdams, are having an absolute ball with this, and some of the others as well. Dan Stevens is really good as the Russian entry, who's like this very sexy, very alluring man. There he is with his shirt off, with his wonderful Lion King-esque song that he sings. But Stefan, I mean, Linda touched on it there, and you touched on it, but it does such a good job of bringing Eurovision to life in a year where a lot of people are really, have missed not being able to see it this year, particularly given the I think it's the Iceland version, the song that's come out from Iceland this year, which I can't remember if I think it won the regional, it won for Iceland, but would have been in the final. Was such a catchy song that it does justice to everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also I think the thing about Eurovision, because I grew up in a household, my mum's obsessed with Eurovision, and it's very kitsch and very overstated and silly and all those sort of things, but it also is a serious competition. And I think that Eurovision is something that the entries and the entrants, I should say, and all the different nations who participate, people do take it very seriously. It doesn't mean a lot to people. And I think that even though it's very easy to ridicule, there's such an affection, I think, for Eurovision in this movie that it's not just taking the mickey out of Eurovision. It's not kind of making it seem stupid or kind of absurd. It plays up to the kind of surreal, kind of just mad aspects of the Eurovision Song Contest, but in a way that's very loving and kind of very much in the spirit of Eurovision. I think for those who are upset, which is like millions of us, that we couldn't indulge in the Eurovision Song Contest this year, this film is a really worthy kind of replacement, because you get the kind of flavour of it. I mean, you've even got Graham Norton in it doing the kind of UK commentary and stuff, and it definitely felt like it filled a kitsch hole in my heart that's been taken away from me this summer. But no, I just think it was just really importantly kind of affectionate towards Europe and towards Eurovision. I think there was a real playful tone, because, you know, there's been a lot of things, hasn't there, at the moment about how, because obviously comedy's been in the firing line as of late about what we're kind of censoring, what things have been taken off. And I think this shows, because this film is all about stereotypes. This film is, in many ways, this is taking the really ridiculing Icelandic and Scandinavian kind of culture in such an affectionate, playful way that it does show that there is this brand of comedy, this sort of playing up to stereotypes in a kind of quite nice and kind of endearing way. It has got a place in comedy, and I think this film has come at a very good time in that regard, to show us that sometimes things can be irreverent and silly, but it doesn't mean they don't need to be taken sort of face value. And I think this film fits that mold.
It definitely has its heart in the right place. I generally can't see anyone being offended by any of it. I mean, I was literally like the first 5 minutes, I was like, are we going to do this like from beginning to end? Is this going to be like this? But then you forget about it. You know, the whole sort of Icelandic accent, a really over exaggerated sort of, way of talking. I really completely forgot about it. Once we got into the crux of the story itself, I didn't care. Also worth saying that the Dan Stevens character, there's a really interesting story there about sort of LGBT rights in Russia, blah blah, like a really they managed to sneak it in, and I really like that like that element of it. You know, the songs as well, the sort of spectacle around it. The songs are really fantastic and really catchy and very silly. I mean, the whole sort of the whole storyline is very silly. I mean, there was one bit towards the end, I'm not going to give it away, towards the end I literally had to like stop and laughed for a good 5 minutes. One thing happens right towards the end, when he's back in Iceland, and I laughed so hard, and I'm really looking forward to talking to other people about it once this goes up live. And I really loved it, really liked it. Again, I think not everyone's going to, because loads of people don't really like that whole sort of Will Ferrell shtick. Loads of people don't get the SNL thing at all, because he's written it with
Andrew Steele, who's a Saturday Night Live writer,
from Saturday Night Live. So loads of people don't really like that. They find it too over exaggerated, a bit sort of like, you know, beating that dead horse. But for me, I like that. I like the silliness of it, and
it's what gives Will Ferrell his license to be as absurd as possible. I mean, look at his face. He's one of those faces where you just laugh when you see it. But this is like Blades of Glory. It's taken a kind of subculture, which obviously in that instance was ice skating, which is so flamboyant and over the top that it let him be his absolute most Will Ferrell. And I think this film again gives him that license to be as silly as he wants, and that for me is when he's at his best. So I think it just tonally it just matched up to his comedic sensibilities perfectly, I think. Scott, as a Will Ferrell fan, does this get the stamp or not? Does it get your approval? Because I'm really like interested, because I'm not a particularly sort of like a, you know, big fan of Will Ferrell, and I really liked it. What did you think?
Yeah, I love him, and I think this is him back to his best. He's made some real stinkers recently. I think Get Hard and most recently Holmes and Watson just were not good movies. I think Holmes and Watson very much tried so hard to be Step Brothers, and just from moment one was just an absolute misfire. And he's tried to do some other things recently. Obviously, he was in Downhill earlier this year that was a little bit different, which didn't quite work. But I like when he and a lot of other comedians, they try and do something a bit different. I quite I quite enjoy when they try and step out the box a bit. But this is pure Will Ferrell, and I think the one thing with this over some of the others is that because he's taken the time to really, it's a subject that he's really passionate about, like he was with stuff like Blaze of Glory and Anchorman, that he took the time, it took so many years to do it, that he wanted to get it just right. And I think the mix of him, Rachel McAdams, the script, and just everyone embracing this kind of kitschiness, I think is very, very good. I think this is him at the best he's been for a long time, which is quite a while, because he's made quite a few stinkers recently, and even me as a fan will admit that a lot of those are not very good. So I think this is pure Will Ferrell, and if this was the last thing that he made for whatever reason, I think it's going out on a high note. But I hope that this sees him doing a few more good comedies, because this is a good one. And also, you mentioned the song. Some of the songs are great. I mean, the song that they perform at the end is a bit of it's a pretty epic song, isn't it? Yeah, it's fantastic. And obviously Volcano Man, which everyone's seen, which I think Dave put a photo up before of the music video that we've seen a bit. So it's only like a minute, but I want to hear that whole. There it is. I want to hear the whole song, because it's so ridiculous. And I loved when it first came up on YouTube, when people commented on it from like Iceland or people that love Eurovision. It's just like, this is so on the money. You don't understand how close this is to what it would actually Eurovision song would actually look like about a volcano man having
I mean,
love and stuff,
Personally, if anyone was to ask me how I would describe it in 2 words, I'd say camp extravaganza. I mean, it's brilliant. I just, it's exactly what we want right now. It's fun, silly. I think it's a bit too long. I think it should have been about an hour and a half. 90 minutes, 95 minutes at the most. I think it's too long. But
Eurovision always goes on too long. I always whenever I watch Eurovision, about 3/4 of the way through, I'm just loving it, and I just go, all right, you can stop now. So it was they only did it to stay in line with the spirit.
Okay, yeah.
But no, I was going to say that I think that because in terms of like work criticisms, I do think the runtime it is genuinely too long. But the only other thing was, I just think there was a couple of things where I think they maybe shoehorned in a couple of quite conventional romantic comedy tropes that maybe the film didn't necessarily need. But at the same time, there was something quite comforting about the familiarity of it going the way you want the film to go. If that makes sense. And even though it was very predictable, like stupidly predictable, I think in some ways I quite liked the familiarity of the predictability, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm trying to say?
I mean, of course.
Yeah.
No, but of course, like I wouldn't have wanted it to go any other way. In all honesty, I think I would have been upset if they had gone a different way. So
yeah. And I think in a world that's massively unpredictable at the moment, a bit of predictability with a silly comedy is probably a good thing. So there we go. That's our thoughts on Eurovision, which starts streaming on Netflix from June the 26th. Just before we sign off, Linda, what's your star review rating for this one?
I was all ready to go 2 stars, no, 4 stars, 4 stars.
And Stefan?
I would say I'll go 4. It was sort of torn between. I'd say it's a sort of usually maybe a 3, but at the moment, just watching it in exactly the time I watched it in, sat down on my sofa, I really felt like I needed it. And also, Pierce Brosnan plays Will Ferrell.
Oh yes.
I mean, like, if that doesn't give it an extra star, I don't know what does, to be honest.
Yeah, and also he's one of those playing his dad, but also you think to yourself, they can't be that far apart in age. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of weird kind of incestuous leanings in this film, isn't there?
I think Pierce Brosnan is old enough to be his dad, definitely.
He will say he was a young father. That's
exactly.
I'm the same as you. I think I would have given it it's a 3-star film, but I think as a movie experience, I think it's a 4 stars, because it's just so much fun, and once you're in that world, you don't want to leave, and the songs are great, and I think it's a film that's kind of perfectly timed in a strange way at the moment, isn't it? That people can put this on and have 2 hours of just sheer fun and just forget everything that's outside the window for a little while. So there we go. A big thumbs up from us for Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. As I say, it starts on Netflix from June the 26th. I think that's worldwide. So log on, tune in, and have some fun. Linda and Stefan, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thank you.
Make sure that you give us a little like on the video down below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and send us your comments once you've seen the film. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Etc. And make sure you head over to HeyUGuys.com for all of your movie and TV needs. We will be back very soon with another video, I'm sure. Till then, take care of yourselves and goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,